For this morning's class, I'm going to use a block, and I've got 2 bricks here as well, which may or may not be needed, depending on your strength and general sense of balance, etc. We're going to play with Eagle moving into Warrior 3 in one of the little sequences that we do. And for some people, actually, Warrior 3 having the bricks out in front. So they can put their hands down in an emergency, just makes you feel a little bit less compromised, a little steadier and safer, and then you don't use them, but they're there like a bit of a comfort blanket. We'll start this morning in child's pose. So we're going to take a couple of minutes. Now, again, you could use a brick or a block underneath the forehead. If your knees are tight, sitting on the block between your heels and your buttocks just changes the angles for the knees a little bit. Cushion underneath the ankles if they're tight as well. Allow yourself to find a comfortable place for your elbows. We don't need to stretch out in this first pose. We just really want to see how the spine feels, see how our breath feels, just check our shoulders can be nice and relaxed. And get a little bit of opening into the ankles, knees, and hips. With the knees taken slightly apart, there's plenty of room for your diaphragm to sink into. So this can be full belly breath. Begin to lift up, and we'll move that into Hero's Pose, Vipassana. So we'll take the block that I had previously and place that towards the back of the heels. We'll take the heels wide, knees together, so the thighs rotating a little bit, and just kneeling down, so a little bit more strain into those thighs. We'll take the arms out to the side as we breathe in, and just bring the palms gently together above the head. Exhaling out. I'm trying to bring the breath and the movement together. The next breath in, just bring the hands to the height of your shoulders. Let your right arm come across your chest straight. And use your left arm to lock into the back of your tricep. Start to draw the shoulder round. Try and keep the shoulder down and relaxed away from the ear. Surface stretch. Breathing into the back of the shoulder blades. And then we'll release that out, take it across to the opposite side. Let's let the hands come down. Roll the shoulders around a few times. Drawing them up forwards a little bit. Back on the exhale and down. And then start to roll the opposite way as well. So getting some movement into the spine a little bit as well as we do this. Take a little breath from there. I'm going to turn very easily towards my right side, just using the left hand out to the right thigh. And then coming back in again, we'll turn to the opposite side. Come forwards and allow ourselves to just move the block out towards the front of the mat. Going to bring the shins back into parallel, tucking the toes underneath, so getting a good stretch into the plantar fascia area of the foot, and giving the toe joints a little bit of an opening up as well. Trying to keep the breath nice and steady. This is one of those poses perhaps tolerating would be the best way of describing it. I can't say it's enjoyable, but yeah, it serves a purpose and we understand what we're trying to do. We know it's good for us. We need to keep those feet nice and mobile for the winter. We'll let ourselves come forwards again onto all fours, so bringing the fingertips into the front end of the mat and just starting to take a couple of rounds of cat-cow. Nice and slow if that feels good to you. Just working with your breath. You can exaggerate the breathing patterns if you wish. And just finding the nooks and crannies running around through your spine and into your ribs a little bit. We get very stiff during the night when we are asleep in bed. And so if this is the first stretch in the morning, this will feel good. We'll come into neutral, so pressing away from the floor with the hands and the shins. We'll tuck the toes of the right foot underneath and slide the leg back. And as we press into the left shin, the right foot comes away from the ground to about the height of the hip. We'll take the left hand out, palm facing in, and just stretch that out. So fingers stretching towards the front of the mat, a flexed foot with the heel pressing to the back, toes pointing down, a little spread as well. And try to keep it bone, belly button, chest, heart, chin over the center line. Try not to wave around too much. And imprinting that feeling of expansion through the body and stretching out, which will be useful for Warrior 3. Bring the hands and the knees back down again. We'll take the toes underneath on the opposite side, stretch that leg out. Press down through the right shin, keeping the hips square to the ground, belly drawn in. We'll take the right hand out and stretch out through that as well. Trying to keep the head largely in line with the body. And then bringing the hands down. We'll spin the feet out to the side, drop your bottom to the floor, feet towards the front of the mat, and we're going to roll down onto our backs. So changing the direction a little bit, chin to chest, use your hands to ease yourself down, roll the spine into the ground, let yourself have a little wiggle through the hips, get that little bit longer in the back of your spine, and with the neck as well. And we'll walk the feet in towards the center line close to us. Taking the left leg to the sky, as directly above the hip as you can. And flex the toes down, again, just making sure the foot's not twisting out to the side. So I want to get a little bit of internal rotation here. And then I'm going to take the hands around the back of the thigh, interlace the fingers, having the hands low down by the groin. I'm actually going to press the thigh into the hands. So I'm going to try and keep the neck nice and long rather than letting the chin move towards the back of the mat. I'm going to press the abdominal muscles down towards the spine and my lower back into the floor as well. And we'll bring the foot back down to the floor. Cross it over to the opposite side. Again, just ease your way in. Drawing down and pressing up at the same time. And the leg presses into the hands. It gets very stretchy around the knuckles, the back of the palm, top of the hand, into that wrist. A little bit into the forearms, stretching as well. Noticing that the arms are completely straight, not bending. Now let that foot come to the floor as well. I'll take the first leg back to the sky. This time we will turn the toes out as I breathe in and bending the knee. I come into a figure four, taking the ankle bone to the outside of the thigh and letting the left knee travel forwards with a flexed foot. I'm going to draw the right knee in towards myself and take my left hand through the center and the right hand around the outside of the right thigh to either the shin or the back of the leg. Interlace the fingers into that figure four, and today I'm going to actually just press the shoulders down to the floor and use the strength of the arms a little bit to open out the hip. So we do this in different ways, even though it's the same pose. Lots of different uses. I can change the emphasis of where the stretch and effort is coming from, which muscles I want to ignite, and start to activate the shoulders and upper back, pressing down so they're nice and broad. Chest is open and wide. There we go. I'm going to let that release. Obviously, we're getting a big stretch into the hip. It kind of goes without saying. Bring the foot back down after the stretch. Take the other leg up. So right leg to the sky, turn the toes. Bend the knee into the figure four. Keep the foot flexed, let the knee travel forwards. Ease the knee towards you on that left side. Allow yourself to take the hands through the center and around the outside, and then ease your way back onto the floor if you're lifted. And start to draw the shoulders back down to the ground. Don't worry too much about the legs. Hopefully the back will stay nice and flat. And I'll release from there as well. We'll shake it out a little bit. Once you bring the right foot down, take the left foot up. Cross the thighs over. Allow myself to take the feet out to the edges of the mat. So my left foot is now over to the right side. My right foot is over to the left side. My thighs have crossed over. And I'm simply going to press the left hand on top thigh, right hand on top of that. And I'm going to press the legs away and try and draw the legs to me at the same time. Now I want the feet to go as wide out to the sides as I can. Out of my peripheral vision, try to have the feet the same height from the floor. So there's quite a lot going on. I'm going to get a bit shaky for that abdominal crunch taking place. Trying to squeeze the thighs together a little bit and maintain the feet position. Going to release from there, lift the chin in towards the chest, allow myself to take my hands out towards the ankles, not through the middle, and the outside of the legs, so I can hold on to both ankles. and then draw myself down to the floor. So bring the knees a little closer in. So it's a little bit like what is a supine cow face pose. And just squeezing the thighs together a little bit, teasing the feet out a little further to the side, getting the rotation into the hips, and then release. Untangle the legs. Bring the feet back down to the floor. Bring the legs together again. Take the right leg to the sky. This time across the leg over. Bring the knees a little closer towards me as I take the right foot to the left foot to the right. Squeezing the thighs again. This time, right hand on the thigh, left hand on top, and I'm going to press and activate all those muscles, whilst taking the feet as wide as I can as well. So I'm trying to turn the toes out, or sorry, the feet out further to the sides, squeezing the thighs together, getting that nice abdominal shake on, plenty of heat generated. And then release. Chin in towards the chest lifts up, hands come out towards the ankles or the heels, and allow myself to sit back. And again, I'm trying to have the heels the same height from the floor. You'll notice that if you need to move one ankle just a quarter of an inch, but when you try to move it in the direction you want, the other leg will move and probably in the direction you weren't expecting. That's a natural phenomenon. Get the thighs squeezing together. A bit of effort through the arms, trying to draw the feet out wider. And it starts to make you appreciate how strong those hip muscles are. Last breath in, release, untangle. We'll take the legs up towards the sky, give them a little shake out. Draw the knees in towards your chest, wrap your arms around your shins, bring the chin in towards your chest. So a big hug. Give a roll on the spine. And we'll roll it over to the right. Use the hands. Spin around on our buttocks again. Come into the front of the mat. To down dog. So sort of as smoothly as you can, manipulating yourself into that pose. And just stretching the feet out a little bit. So we're going to take some variations of sun salutations. We'll bring the hands towards the toes first of all before we start that, and come into a nice forward bend. Back of the mat, toes and feet aligned with the fingertips. Decent bend in the knees so you can feel those hamstrings working behind you. They don't have to be completely straight legs, but if you can get your ribs and thighs to touch, you know you've come down far enough. We'll take one more breath here. And exhale. Bring the hands onto the hips. Keep a softness in the knees and allow yourself to lift up with a flat back. We'll saunter to the front of the mat and allow the feet to be about hip distance apart. Bring the hands in towards your heart as you take a breath in. Soften the knees, flat back, hinge forwards down to the floor. Fingertips on the ground, taking the right foot to the back of the mat into lunge and dropping the heel in, ready for warrior two. Bring hands alongside the body. Float the right arm forwards and the cartwheel our way up into warrior two. Get the hands high and then rotate out towards the front of the mat. So linger a little. Allow yourself to hang and bring the weight slowly down to the floor. Step back into that down dog, rearranging your foot stance. Bring yourself into a plank. Keep the hips high. Push forwards on the tippy toes as you breathe in. Bring the elbows into the ribs. Inhale all the way up to up dog. Exhale it back into your down dog. And then when you're ready, sit your right leg high. Draw the knee towards your chest and bring your foot through to the front of the mat for your lunge. Push off the toes into that forward bend. Bring hands onto the hips, soft knees and a flat back to lift. And we'll take the hands high through the heart. And exhale down, side two. Take a breath. Bend the left foot back into lunge. Drop the heel in. Hands alongside the body. Float the left arm forwards and up into our warrior two. Set hands high again. Rotate and linger, hover. Keep a little bit of weight in the back foot. Draw the hip on the right side backwards a little bit. So you square more to the front of the mat as the hands come down. Ease your way into your down dog. Breath in to plank. Toes push forwards. Elbows to the ribs. Inhale. As you get tired, try not to drop so hard and low into that half plank. Give yourself a bit of space. Left leg lifts. Breathe in. Knee in towards the chest. Bring the foot through to the lunge. And push off the toes. Forward bend. Hands on the hips. Let ourselves bring the hands high and towards the heart. Exhaling down to the floor. Take a breath. Send the right foot back again into lunge. Carefully drop the heel in. Bring the hands alongside. Right arm comes forwards. We'll float gently into our warrior two. Turn the palm on the front hand. So pretty much seamlessly moving into reverse warrior. We'll come back. Warrior two. Take the hands high on the breath in. Rotate out. Little hover. And we come. Stepping back into our down dog. We'll come forwards into plank. Half plank. Up dog. Roll it back. Down dog. Shiver the right leg high. Keep hips as square as you can. Knee comes in. Foot comes through. And from the lunge we step. Exhaling into a forward bend. Hands onto the hips. We'll do that again to the second side. So hands come high. Through the heart. Exhale down. Take a breath. Step it into your lunge left leg. Drop the heel in. Use your exhale to lift into your warrior two. Turn the palm into your reverse warrior. We'll come back into warrior two. Hands come high. Linger again a little as we lengthen out. Down to the floor. Step it back into our down dog. Come forwards into a plank. Half plank. Up dog. Down dog. And left leg scissor. Knee to chest. Foot through. And step it into the front of the mat. Hands onto the hips and we'll lift up. We'll add further to that. Inhale high. And through the heart. And exhale down to the floor. Send the right foot back into lunge. Drop the heel in. Lift ourselves into warrior two. Palm turns, reverse warrior. We'll come into our warrior two. Hands come high. Down to the floor we go. Less hover. We'll spin the back heel and move ourselves into lunge. Drop the back knee to the floor as we untuck the toes. Draw the hands towards you a little bit. You start to pivot on the front leg. Then tuck the toes after on the back foot. Slide yourself back onto your heel. So the front leg is now straight and hopefully you can push out through the heel a little bit, toes towards the sky. And then we'll lift back up into lunge and step it back into down dog. We'll come forwards again, plank, half plank to up dog. Roll it over to our down dog. Swivel the right leg high, knee to chest, bring the foot through, and press off the toes. That forward fold, hands onto the hips, let ourselves lift, inhale high, hands through the heart, and exhale down to the floor. Last side, take a breath, left leg back, heel drops in, hands alongside the body to lift, and the palm, reverse your warrior. Come back into your warrior two. Hands come high. We'll open out, down to the floor. Spin the back heel. Easily to the ground on top toes. Slide the fingers back past your own heel. Allow yourself to center yourself over the line as you pivot on the front foot. Tuck the toes on the back foot. Allow yourself to sit back onto your heel. So when I do this, my foot slides along the ground 6 inches or so. But I'm still trying to press out through the heel. I'm trying to get this right leg here nice and straight. Toes are tucked under. So it's like a 1 foot hero pose. Belly's drawn in a little bit. I'll let myself come back again. Bring the hands forwards and step it back into my down dog. Entangling the creases in the mat as I go. Coming forwards into my plank, half plank to up dog. Strong legs to lift the hips. Skybound, left leg lifts. Draw the knee into the chest, bring the foot through. Take a breath in your lunge. And then step it into the fold. Hands onto the hips, and we let ourselves lift. We come high again. Breath in. Exhale. Allow ourselves to come down to the floor. Now I'm going to grab one of those bricks from the front of the mat that were to the side and just place that middle line of my mat, so centered. Take a breath and send the right foot to the back of the mat. I'm going to drop the heel in and bring my hand onto the inside of that left foot. So both hands are on the right. And I'm going to place the palm onto the brick flat and turn the chest open and begin to place the back of my palm onto my spine, base of my spine. So opening out gently, I'm trying to roll the shoulder over, keeping the hips under the center line of the mat, pressing into the back foot a little bit. So getting the base and the foundation sorted. And then slowly take that top arm up towards the sky with the palm facing out. I want the crown of the head to lengthen to the front of the mat, so I'm not dropping the weight into the neck. It's active and long. Looking towards the floor, I'm going to slowly lengthen the front leg and let the fingers come away from the block. So the triangle pose is more lifted. I'm doing the carrying. That's the basic premise here. I'm going to extend the top arm out towards the front of the mat, keeping the chest open, palm facing down towards the foot. And slowly bring the hand down and rotate as I bend into the front knee. Just move the brick out of the way to bring the hands down. I'm going to wiggle the back foot away so I can come into a lizard pose. Just dropping the back knee gently to the floor. Taking the left hand up into the twist. And as the hand goes back, I'll bring the heel in towards my bottom. See if I can get my fingers around the foot, draw the heel towards me. I'm going to release that foot down gently. Bring the hand back over onto the inside of the foot again. Lift the back knee. Walk the fingers then around to the long side of the mat, turning the toes in. Up on the fingertips for a long flat spine, allow myself to hinge from the hips as I exhale down. And lifting back up. And walking the fingers gently through to the front of the mat. I'm going to step back into a forward bend. Allow myself to move the brick so it's accessible to me. Bring the hands onto the hips, let myself lift up. Put the hands high on the breath in, into the heart. And exhale all the way back down to the floor. Taking the left leg back into lunge. Bring the brick flat side down for me. Onto the inside. Drop the back heel in. Slowly, slowly, allow myself to bring my hand onto the hip. Really accentuate the rotation of the chest around to the long side and that shoulder behind. Allow the palm to press lightly into the back of the base of the spine. Press the back foot down so the thigh feels active, the knee feels lifted. Again, keeping the head in line with the rest of the body. And feeling that I've rotated as far as I'm going to get. Take the top arm up towards the sky. That chest nice and open. So not really adding any stress into that shoulder, just moving the arm through 90-degree lift, as I would if it was out to the side of my body in any other position. I'll take a little breath from there. Allow myself to look towards my big toe on the front foot. Press down. Front left leg lift. So hand comes off of the block. Triangle pose. But again, just keeping the body nice and long. I'll slowly take the top hand out towards the front of the mat. Keeping the chest open. Shoulders roll back a little bit. Trying to follow the center line with that top arm. And I'm going to soften the knee, bring the hands down. Allow myself to move the brick out of the way. Ease the back knee down to the floor, untuck the toes. Right hand comes forwards and up into the twist. The back heel comes in, grabbing the foot. Just drawing the front knee in a little bit. Again, I'm going to lift the chest and rotate round. Press down nicely through that bottom hand. And releasing the foot to the floor, draw the arms back over to the inside. Lift the back knee to take a breath. Walk around to the long side of the mat, turn the toes in. And on the exhale, fold. So keeping the feet working, pressing down into the ground. Try and keep the weight even through the foot. So conscious of if the weight is feeling very much in the toes, you want to push your hips back a little bit, vice versa. Also making sure it feels like you're working through both legs as evenly as possible. Belly drawn in. Trying to lift the hips towards the sky as you press the feet down will help you hang your body. Lift up onto the fingertips as you breathe in. Walk around to the front end of the mat. Back into a lunge. Take a breath and push off the toes into that forward bend. Now I'm going to take both of the bricks this time and have them about the torso's distance out in front of me. So you can test that a little bit with straightened legs and hands underneath the shoulders so you know where they are. Then I'm going to take the hands off, arms forward fold. Bring the hands onto the hips, allow yourself to lift up. So just make a note mentally of how far you are from the front of your mat. For a moment, allow yourself to step back towards the middle of the mat. Bring the feet together. We'll take the arms out wide as we breathe in. Soften the knees over the toes. Allow yourself to bring your left arm across, right arm over the top, bend at the elbows. Bring the palms together. I'm going to let the elbows sink in towards the chest a little bit. Take a breath, sit back a little further into chair pose. Then begin to shift the weight into the left foot. Bring the right foot and bring the left leg across. Oops. Finding the luxuries of a very rubbery mat. A little bit tricky there this morning. Sometimes coming to a hard surface is a little bit more stable. Okay, so we'll release out of that. Allow the feet to come back together. We'll take your arms the opposite way. Settle down, knees over toes. Heels, take the weight as we come down a little lower. This time we will take the weight into that left leg. I'll get it the right way around. And the right thigh lifts up and over. Oops. Okay, well, let's untangle from that. Come back onto the mat and we'll step back to pretty much that first position we had. Allow the feet to come together again, take the arms out wide. Left arm comes across, right arm over the top. Bend into the elbows, legs are set down gently. Take a little breath. Weight into the right foot. Left leg comes across and over. Sink down a little deeper on the exhale. On the inhale, float the arms out wide. Untangle the legs, bring the heel in towards your bottom. Allow yourself to open out into your warrior three with arms out to the side. Now the bricks are down there if you need them. Hopefully you can straighten both legs. Take another breath. And then soften the front knee. Allow yourself to come back into a high crescent pose. And then from there, bring the hands to the floor. And step back into your forward bend. Feet together again, hands onto the hips. Take a little breath and allow yourself to lift. Hands come out wide. Right arm, left arm over the top. Sit into the knees. Take the weight into the heels. Weight into the left leg. Wrap the leg over on that right side. Take one more breath as you sink a little lower. Let the arms open out. Untangle the legs, bring the heel in towards your bottom. Slowly lengthen out into that wide version of warrior three. Try and keep the hips square. Last breath in. Soften the front knee. Allow yourself to come into a high crescent. And ease the hands down to the floor. And from the lunge, we step for the last time into a fold. And bring the hands onto the hips. Let the heels lift up. We'll take the hands high. Down to the floor. We'll step back into down dog. And come forwards into plank. I'm going to take it into a side plank over to the left. So making sure your wrist is underneath your shoulder. Front foot, the top leg, foot flat to the floor. Bottom leg, foot to the side. Keep the head in line with the body. Try not to let it drop. We'll bring the hand down to the floor. Cross it over to the opposite side. So keep the hips nice and high from the start. And bring the hands back down to the floor. I'm going to come into half plank, but lower all the way down to the ground. So kind of a belly flopped version until we reach the ground. We'll move the brakes out of the way. Whew. so we don't bump our head. Bring the hands onto the bottom of the ribs. Arms facing down for the low cobra. Just draw the elbows and shoulders together a little. Let the heels roll out a bit on the inhale. Lift the chest just to that bottom rib. Exhale down. So trying to keep the thighs and the bootlaces on the ground. So as you lift your chest, you're pressing your legs down and away a little bit. Inhaling up. And exhaling down. One more time. Now the chin on the ground, allow yourself to take your hands behind your back and interlace your fingers. And draw your hands towards your toes. If you are able, and you've got the mobility in your shoulders to bring the palms of your hands together, so the heels and the hands touch, that's great. But otherwise, we will settle with just interlaced fingers and squeezing the shoulders as best we can. We'll inhale up the chest, squeeze the shoulder blades together, and draw the hands towards the toes. Try and roll those heels out, press the thighs down. We stay in position as we breathe. One last breath. And back down. Now, as you release your hands to the side of your body, just bend both knees so the heels come towards you. A little lift of the chest so you can take your hands back one side at a time if you need to find your ankle bones. Take a nice strong grip on the front of that ankle and then flex the feet. Now press the hips into the floor and the thighs away. Keep yourself attached to the ground. Just allow yourself to be very long. Allow the shoulders to kind of wriggle back a little bit. So they move into a good position in a nice kind of soft way without adding tension into the front of the chest. On the next exhale, we'll press the shins away. Try to keep the thighs on the floor as best you can. So we're starting to lift the chest and lengthen out forward through the pelvis, the crown of the head, and using the legs pressing back to give us a little bit more lift as well. Now, having got acclimatized to that, on the next exhale, begin to press your feet towards the sky and see if you can get the front of your thighs away from the ground. Still pressing the shins away, pressing the soles of the feet to the sky. Bow pose. Last breath in. Release back down to the floor. Now, as your feet come to the ground, bring your hands underneath your chin, elbows out wide. Set yourself up a little rock from side to side. I'll take one more breath there. And then roll to whichever side you like to, so that you can bring your arms a little more underneath you, your knees in towards you, and press slowly away from the floor to come back up onto the knees wide, child's pose again. This time I'm going to walk the hands out, shoulder distance apart, palms down, keeping the elbows from the ground. Seeing a little bit more of a lengthening out underneath the shoulders, into that latissimus dorsi muscle. And all the other shoulder muscles that are supporting that part of the back that we're stretching out. And we'll walk hands back in. Going to come up onto all fours, take the flat block underneath the bottom. So spinning the feet out to the side a little bit. And sitting tall in Dandasana. So feet are together, toes drawn back. So the feet are square as if you're sort of pressing them against the wall. They're not little toe forwards there. nicely drawn back. Thighs are rolling in a little bit to access that. We'll just draw the flesh a little from side to side. Allows us to press the sitting bones down into the floor so we get that natural rebound effect through the spine to lift up and the shoulders and chest nice and open. I'm trying to lengthen the legs away. And we're purposefully going to put a decent bend into the front of the knees and bring the hands onto the shins. I'm going to come into a seated forward fold. So I want to make some space first of all. Get plenty of length in the spine. Allow myself to hinge from the hips forwards, just holding the hands against the shins. So take another breath. Allow yourself to bring the ribs down a little closer to the thighs. Take another breath and allow yourself to start to fold more towards the middle of the back and ease the hands out towards the ankles. And gently pull yourself forwards, very lightly. Ease the hands out from the ankle to the top of the toes and see if they can draw the toes towards you. So palms are over the top of the feet and beginning to pull the feet towards me. As I do that, I'm starting to see if I can lengthen the hips away towards the back of the mat. So that big bend that I started with in the legs is gradually feeding its way out. Obviously, some people are going to get more movement there than others, but it's about trying to use your abdominal muscles to send the tailbone back as much as it is about getting the legs to open out. One could argue that the emphasis on the abdominal muscles and controlling the hips moving backwards and your lower back muscles is the more important part to focus on. Last breath in, let ourselves release and sit back up again. We'll take another twist, this time just taking one hand forwards onto that right thigh and one hand behind, sitting as upright as we can. Still with Dandasana legs. And then we'll take it to the opposite side. And as we release, you bring the spine back to the center. We'll take the left heel out towards the right hip for a seated twist and bringing the right foot across, tilting the pelvis forwards a little bit, again getting the spine length and making sure both sitting bones are on the ground. Taking the left arm up, cross over towards the right side. Use the leg and arm to counter leave a little bit. If possible, the foot that is over on the left side, the front, is flat to the ground, so knee is high. Rotate around on the axis of your spine. So one last breath here. Come back. Take that into the second side. Again, just settle through the sitting bones. Make sure we're happy before we move. And release. Take the legs out of front, give them a little shake. allow yourself to have your feet more sort of hip distance apart this time. We'll bring the left heel into the groin, keeping the foot flexed towards the front, knee out towards the side. You can pack with a brick under if you need to, or square the hips a little more towards the front leg, and put a smaller bend in the front leg this time, lifting up, folding over, and seeing if I can slide the hands out and around the sole of the foot, even if you're able to take hold of the wrists maybe. The chest or the ribs feeling like they're square to the ground. Quite often when we come into this pose, it feels like the left side of the ribs are lifted a little high, so we try and drop them in a bit towards the center line. And we'll release, let ourselves lift back up. Take it into the second side. Square up. 5 points to the sky. Juicy bend in the knee. Fold it over. Slide the hands out to the foot. And we'll release from there. Allow ourselves to lift up. I'm going to come down to the ground. I'm going to use the block under the back of the head. Just makes life a little easier for me. So by all means, if that feels comfortable to you, then chin into the chest, roll the spine down, use your hands to support. So you come down to the floor with control, and head is on the block, not pressing into the neck or the shoulders. So take the arms out and wide with chest. So that's lower than the shoulders. You can wriggle the shoulders a little bit as well, palms facing up. I'm just going to bring the feet close to the bottom and then move the hips over towards the left, keeping the shoulders on the ground. Just going to allow myself to roll the legs as easily and comfortably over towards the right as I can. And use the right hand to add a little bit of weight to that left leg. But otherwise, try and keep that very soft and passive. For some, turning the head the opposite way to the legs feels comfortable in the neck. If I'm not using the block, I would be doing that. And we'll ease from there, back out. Enjoy taking the hips to the opposite side and rolling the legs down to the left. And we'll lift back up. And we're just in time to slide the heels out to the corner edges of the mat. Bring your hands a little closer to the side of the body, palms facing up. Closing the eyes and softening the jaw, wriggle and jiggle anything that needs to be jiggled and wriggled, and then let yourself be still. And begin to wriggle those fingers and toes. And feel to breathe a little deeper. With some ankles begin to move. Connect yourself to the room, to your mat, to your body. And then allow yourself to stretch out in any way, simple or as extravagant as you wish. And then take a little time to slide the heels along the ground towards you. Keep the spine soft and relaxed. Let the knees ease in towards the body. Very gentle hug. Spine stays flat to the floor. A little rock on the spine or a stirring of the knees. Whatever feels good and gentle. And then we're going to roll onto the right side. We'll take a breath or two there, committing ourselves to rolling onto our sides. And then when we're ready, we can press away from the ground smoothly on an exhale. And bring ourselves back to sitting. Hands come into the heart. We'll take a breath in. As we close the eyes, we let the chin drop, beginning to exhale. Finding the belly, draw onto the spine, we bow to the floor simply. Gratitude for our breath, our body, our mind. On the inhale, letting the spine build with that breath. And head lift, eyes open. Namaste. Thank you very much for joining me on this slightly windy, autumny day. Hope you enjoyed, and see you on the mat again soon.